Hello, welcome to another tutorial. Glad you're here. This game of life, though rewarding, is harder than any video game you've ever played, so in my opinion you could use all the help you can get. Personally, I'd like to turn the difficulty down, but I haven't figured out how, and I'm guessing neither of you. This tutorial will handle some of the survival aspects you may encounter while out and about in one of the game's many open-world maps. Specifically, one of the wild food resources that could help you prevent game over if you find yourself in a bad situation away from creature comforts often taken for granted. So to recap, among other things such as sleep, water, and shelter, you need to eat. Forget progression, that's just what you need to do to survive, and you've only got one life, so no do-overs. Beyond survival, some of these foods may even prove to be more than just a necessary meal. There are good flavors to be found in wild places, and at the very least, they're free of the microtransactions known as grocery shopping. The wild edible plant that will be the focus of this tutorial is known most commonly as field garlic. Unfortunately, unlike many games, the resource nodes here don't glow or have markers, so you'll have to find it based on looks alone. Above ground, it appears as this, somewhat akin to a long grass of sorts. Its color is what typically gives it away. This plant has a far bluer tint to it than most other plants, especially grasses at this time of year. The difference will often be subtle, but as with many things, the time you spend is earned as experience, which contributes to your mastery of this aspect of survival. And as mastery increases, so too does the range at which you may detect this resource. There are poisonous lookalikes to field garlic and other alliums, most notably many lily species. There are ways to distinguish them based on appearance, but that's not the best way to sort out produce from poison in this case. This is because most player characters come pre-equipped with a state-of-the-art analysis tool, known as a nose. Field garlic and other alliums have a distinct and likely very familiar odor, which the poisonous plants do not. All you need to do is tear a piece off and analyze. So good it almost makes you want to tear up. Once you have identified the plant, you can either pick off the greens, either with a knife or by hand, or better yet, dig up the whole plant. There is no right or wrong way to do this. You'll find what works for you. But as an example, here's how I do it. Alright, gloves, optional, though I do very much appreciate the added cold resistance that they give on such a chilly day. Not optional today, however, is some kind of tool. You're not getting through this with your hands, ground's frozen. Now to do this, it's pretty simple. At about a 45-degree angle, with whatever you're using, whether it be a tool like this or a shovel, pierce down, pull up. What you're trying to do is get underneath the field garlic. These don't go very deep. The bulbs are at most 1.5 inches under the ground. And if you get underneath them sufficiently, you can just pull them up, or if I had more tactile ability, if it was warmer out, I didn't have to wear gloves, you'd pretty much be able to reach under there, grab them and pull them through. But in this case, it'll suffice to just tear them out that way. As you can see, they look very similar to green onions. The green parts of this plant may be eaten raw, and I suppose the white underground portion as well, if desperation strikes, that is. The green part is already quite bracing raw, and the white part is much stronger, so I wouldn't recommend it. At least in my opinion, this is a plant that is far better cooked. In a follow-up tutorial, I'll demonstrate how to make a soup out of this plant that will boost its effectiveness as food and perhaps even give a sated buff if your mastery is high enough. This plant is also non-native here in North America, so utilizing it brings little to no damage to the native environment. As far as whether it's invasive or not, perhaps. I try to count it among allies, not enemies, but removing it is good for those native inhabitants who ought to hold at least a strong claim to their home. Even barring its usefulness, its nature means that it's almost certainly here to stay. Removing it would cause far too much collateral damage if it did anything at all. There are many more invasive species out there, baddies to deal with, that are far more worthy of attention and far more feasible to best. But that's a topic for a different tutorial. I do hope you've learned something, and I wish you the best. Until next time.